Amazing. Let's go to Trey Yingst. He's live in Tel Aviv, where Israeli forces have just confirmed the death of an IRGC head of intelligence. He's also a brigadier general as well. Trey, what can you tell us?
Yeah, guys, good morning. And that operation over the weekend, nothing short of historic. I've been talking with U.S. and Israeli officials, and they say there's no other country that could have successfully extracted that airman from deep in Iranian territory. The spy craft behind the scenes, we'll learn more in the days ahead, but really remarkable. We're also learning of another U.S. and Israeli victory overnight. A senior Israeli official telling Fox News that Majid Kadimi, the intelligence chief for the IRGC, was killed in a strike early this morning. Kadimi wasn't just any figure, I'm told. He was effectively the number 2 within the IRGC, one of the senior commanders who managed to survive multiple attempts on his life over the past year. He oversaw the intelligence apparatus that was used to target U.S. forces and allies across the region. Now, this comes as there is talk of diplomacy once again across the Middle East. Yesterday, I spoke with President Trump, and he said he's confident about the possibility of a deal even as early as today to end this conflict. But he said if there's no agreement, quote, you're going to see bridges and power plants dropping all over their country. If they don't make a deal and fast, I'm considering blowing everything up and taking over the oil. Now, a new report today in Reuters says a framework to end hostilities has been put together by Pakistan and exchanged with Iran and the U.S. overnight, outlining a 2-tier approach with an immediate ceasefire followed by a comprehensive agreement. Despite this talk of diplomacy, there are new U.S. and Israeli strikes that are targeting the Iranian regime. And again, we are tracking the latest developments after that successful rescue of an airman over the weekend in southwest Iran. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu releasing a post on X yesterday saying, quote, I spoke earlier with President Trump and personally congratulated him on his bold decision and a perfectly executed American mission to rescue the downed pilot from enemy territory. The president expressed his appreciation for Israel's help. I am deeply proud that our cooperation on and off the battlefield is unprecedented and that Israel could contribute to saving a brave American warrior. We're also tracking the incoming Iranian fire against Israel, multiple ballistic missile barrages overnight. And on Sunday, 4 people were killed in the northern Israeli city of Haifa. You can see this drone video, the aftermath of a direct impact in that Israeli city. As this is taking place, the Israelis say they believe the Iranians still have the ability to launch missiles and drones at their country. But as Operation Epic Fury continues and the Americans and the Israelis hammer the military apparatus of the Iranian regime, it becomes more and more difficult for Iran to respond. Guys?
Great job out there, Trey.
Yeah,
thanks, Trey.
Incredible. So knowledgeable. So this has brought up a lot of conversations about NATO and what is the future of NATO now if we don't have countries that are supporting us. You have Spain that closed its airspace to U.S. military aircraft that's involved in this Iranian conflict. And earlier, Madrid refused to allow the U.S. to use joint operated bases. And Ari Fleischer had a message. NATO's going to look a lot different going forward because they're not supporting us.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, Ari was right when he leaned into the fact that the eastern side of NATO countries are leaning in. Countries like Poland, who are the only country that give more money to their GDP on defense than even the U.S., compared to Spain and France and countries like that. Here's what he said. He said, when this is over, the western part of NATO will never be the same. Spain, England, France, and Italy have sold us out, as they too often have a history of doing. Eastern European nations are the heart of NATO. They spend money on defense, know how to fight, and love the U.S. France particularly deserves fault and blame, from supporting China and Russia at the UN to denying Americans overflight rights. They're doing what they've always done, showing weakness while cutting deals with terrorists. The reason the U.S. has a Marine Corps and Navy is, unlike France, we refuse to pay a ransom to Barbary pirates. France is always happy to cut a deal. Wars have unintended consequences as nations show their true colors. NATO will never be the same, and Western European weakness and acquiescence is the cause.
We are witnessing the great American comeback right now when it comes to the power on the global stage and reorganizing not only what's happening in the Middle East, but with NATO as well. And the sad thing about all of this is we always, I thought, could depend on the Europeans when we were in conflict. Mm-hmm. Many of them fought with us in Afghanistan and Iraq, but that's not the case right now. We see the Gulf states really taking the lead here and waging war against. We would have never thought. And I think it's because of Donald Trump. He went to those countries. He promised them economic prosperity if they drop the radical Islam. And many of those go, you see with the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Iran is the only partner, well, they weren't never a partner, that decided they wanted to hate us and Israel so much that they wouldn't come to the negotiating table. So the question is, does NATO, with Mark Rutte, who has been a friend of the president for a long time, does he convince the Europeans to do something before this ends? Because if they don't, that's the end of NATO.
Why do we pay into this? Why do we pay the most? Why are we involved in this if they're not going to protect us or allow us to use their airspace on our bases that we own in their countries? So if they're not going to support us, why are we even a part of this?
No, and I think you laid it out perfectly, Lawrence, because ultimately President Trump is testing NATO countries, European countries, to see, like, I don't need you. With our military, we can open the Strait of Hormuz. We can do whatever we need to do. We have the finest, most capable military on the planet. But let's see if you'll get involved.
Right.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.